Welcome to the first Spectrum board game tutorial. My name is Joe Devlin. I'm the designer of the game, and I thought I'd walk you through the basic rules and some of the early game strategies. We'll have two more tutorials, a mid-game one and an end-game one, but let's start with the basics. So Spectrum is a game of colors. The first thing you need to know is when you're entering the board with your pawns to start the game, they may only enter on the six primary colors. You can see they are marked with a star: blue, green, yellow, orange, red, and purple. And in between each primary color is a secondary or intermediate color, which is the shade between them. For example, right here we have the purple red or red purple, however you wish to uh, call it. But again, pawns may only enter on the primary colors. Once they're on the board, then they can move into the secondary colors under certain conditions, and that's what we're going to explain. So there are three basic roles that can happen in Spectrum, and we're going to look at all three of them right now. And we'll start with probably the most common, which is when you roll two colors, two primary colors. The six primary colors are the same six that are on the dice. So when you roll two primary colors that are not next to each other. So as we can see, this is a blue-orange roll, and blue and orange are nowhere near each other. So in this case, whenever you roll two primary colors that are not next to each other, your options are to move two spaces in orange, or two spaces in blue, or one space in orange and one space in blue. You get to use your two movement allotment of your turn in the two colors you rolled and in nowhere else. So if this was Orange's turn, he went first, he would have the option to go two in blue, right? Well, that wasn't very good. How about two in blue? Or he could come in as two in orange, or if he wanted to, he could bring one in orange and one in blue. And just to make things exciting, I'm going to say he took that option. Sometimes that is a good option, sometimes it's not. If you notice when you're sitting on the first spot, you open up jumping to any opponent entering in there, and we'll cover that in a few moments. So, again, this is a common role. Two primary colors not next to each other. When that happens, you may only move in the two colors shown. You get your two movement points, and you can split them up either two in one color or split them up one in each. That's the first kind of roll in Spectrum. The second kind of roll in Spectrum, when you roll two primary colors that are next to each other. So in this case, we have rolled purple and blue, and they are primary colors next to each other. They are separated by a secondary intermediate color, but as far as primary colors, they are next to each other on the board. So when you roll any two primary colors that are next to each other, it brings into a third option to your movements. Again, you have the same move two in purple, move two in blue, move one in each. But then because they are next to each other, you're allowed to move into, out of, or through the shade of blue purple that's between them. Okay, so let's assume this is Red's turn. Red could do a couple things here since he rolled blue purple. Let's look at the easiest one. He can move two in purple and just do that and say that's my move. His other option is to come on two in blue, which would allow him to do either a capture or a jump, right? So we'll come back to that one. And his other option would be to do something like this, which is to come in on purple, and because the blue purple is open, he could walk in to something like that. Remember, on normal movement, you must share a full side. On jumping, you're allowed to do certain things beyond that. So Red could have came in like that. The other option he had was to come in two on blue. Now, because it's a normal roll, it's not a special roll like a doubles, he's allowed to either take one at a time, one blue and then a second blue, or he could take both blues at once and use it as a jump. So if he takes them one at a time, he would land on orange. Whenever you land on a opposing pawn, you're allowed to send them back to any starting spot, so any spot with the star on it. If none of them are open, it goes back to the player's stock. But in this case, everything's open, so let's just say we send them to green. And then Red could take the second move and be in control of purple with nobody behind him. His other option was to come in and use both movement points at the same time, which is a jump. When he jumps, he'll be allowed to land on any space that touches the jumping spot, not just shares a full side, but touches, so we can get into where just shares a point. So Red could jump in and land somewhere like this, because that is a shared point over the one. What he could also do, though, is because he had rolled the purple-blue and this bluish-purple area is open, he can jump and actually land as far as here. As you can see, this space does still touch the original one. Now remember, with jumping is when you can touch on the edge. Normal movement, you must share a side. But this is a legal move for Red to jump into the auxiliary color. So we'll just say he does that for his turn, and we'll move on to the third type of roll, and that is a special roll. Now, in this case, it's doubles because we're playing with 2 dice. Once 4 colors are captured here in the center of the board by players, we're going to add a third die, and you'll have things like triples and later on quadruple rolls that could happen. But in this case, doubles, triples, anything like that is called a special roll, and that comes with special rules. So whenever you roll a doubles or a special roll, the first thing you do is you must take your allotted 2 moves in the color you rolled. So in this case, it's blue, and we'll say it's blue's turn. So he must take 2 spots in blue. Now, the special rule with special rolls is that you must take those 2 moves together. So unlike the move that I believe red had where he could come in and say 1 and 1 and move orange away, blue must take both moves together, which means it's going to be a jump. So blue would have the option to jump to here or here if he wanted to, but these are his 2 options. So he would probably move here. And then as a bonus for rolling the special roll, the bonus is 2 more movement points either in the color on the bottom of the dice, which in this case would be orange. So he could come in and do a jump on orange, much like he did over on blue, and do something like this. Again, he could not walk and capture because he must take both at the same time on a special roll. So he could come in like that. Or his other option is to move through, into, or out of the auxiliaries on either side of the color he rolled, blue, so he can move in these 2 areas, bluish green or bluish purple, or on the 2 auxiliaries on either side of the bottom color, which was the orange, so he can move in red, orange, or orange, yellow, right? So this gives blue a lot of options on this turn because that means he could move something like this, like this, and come into sky blue as his bonus. He moved into the auxiliary. He could do the same thing over here and move into purple, right? I mean, if you really wanted to, he could come backwards and land on red and send them somewhere. I don't think that would be a very good move because you're getting further away from the color, right? So he has that option from this side. But over here, now he must take his 2, so he's got to jump in. But because the auxiliaries are open, he could jump in to here, right? Touches orange. He could jump into here, touches the orange. He could jump into here, touches the orange. And because the auxiliaries are open, he's allowed to go in there. I think probably the best move would be something like this for blue because he's moving along, he's halfway along auxiliary, and he's pretty safe right there. So that would probably be blue's opening move. And why don't we do one more for green just to show a live roll. So we'll say green's turns next. And 2 primary colors not next to each other, right? Orange and purple not next to each other, separated by reds in the middle here. So that means green's either going to have to come in 2 on purple or 2 on orange, which could set him up for a jump here, right? And this will show you something here, or he could do 1 in each. So he could do something like this, move off him and move in like this. I don't think that's going to be the best move. The best move is going to be this, which is to come in on the jump, right? And probably come in on the jump and land probably somewhere around here. So that's early game tutorial. As we see, it's 3 different kinds of rolls are going to be the types of rolls that can happen. You have capturing when you land on somebody, which allows you to send them back to the beginning spot on a primary color, and jumping, which allows you to take advantage of moving extra spaces by landing on a spot that only touches the original jumping spot as opposed to sharing a full side. So that's the end of the early game tutorial. We'll move on to the mid-game tutorial next, and hopefully you'll enjoy playing Spectrum, and we'll see you at the board.